What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League podcast back for another week. This is your week 11, 2023 NFL week recap. I'm your host, Alex League. We got the co host, Amanda. Amanda, another great week of football.
I mean, it was interesting. I know we picked five head-to-head matchups differently, and you finally beat me in 1 week. So my lead has dropped to three, but there were some very close, scrappy games. So a great week of football overall.
Yeah, I was sweating it Sunday night and Monday night. Like, if I had lost both of those, then you would be up 6 games. I'm so happy that I got both of those and got it back. I think, yeah, 6 games. So then I got it back to three. So.
Yeah. So my overall lead is 3 games, but I mean, you went 3 for 2 for the week, but I will say my picks were much closer than your wrong ones. So
Yeah, but who's counting? Just win, right? Who
yeah,
cares
I mean,
about
we
it?
don't do the over under or the spread at all, but man, mine were pretty close. Like two of mine, like last second fuck ups. Like there was a missed 55-yard field goal and a drop touchdown pass. Like those were almost wins. So I was pretty pissed off at the end of those, but we can get into that later.
Yeah, and I was sweating. I mean, we'll get into those games, but it was tough. We'll start it off with Steelers Browns, which was a great game. AFC North divisional rivalry game. We knew it was going to be hard hitting and a tough game. And we both picked this one right, taking the Browns, even with rookie Dorian Thompson Robinson getting the start.
Yeah, and we said this would be probably a 3-point game, and we nailed it. I mean, 13-10, the Browns pulled off the win, and it was, the tale of two backup quarterbacks in this situation. So it was kind of interesting.
Well, Kenny Pickett played, but he plays like a backup.
Well, I know. We were making that joke on the last episode, so
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And it's not just Kenny Pickett too. It was Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator, who they finally fired after this game. I mean, the Steelers 6-4 record, but they've been outgained in every single game this year on offense.
yeah, I think it's interesting. The city of Pittsburgh shared like a sunrise photo the morning after they fired Matt Canada, and it was a stunning sunrise. They were like, nature's at peace again. So I really hope they can turn things around. I mean, the record is fine, but they definitely need to work out some of those kinks because that offense needs some help.
Yeah, and their defense is keeping them in games. But not quite enough. Credit to Dorian Thompson Robinson, who struggled in his first career start through 3 interceptions. I think turned the ball over 4 times. But on Sunday, he actually came through in the clutch and brought the team down to kick the game-winning field goal. And no turnovers, right? 1 interception, but a pretty clean game from him, and came through in the clutch.
Yeah, I was worried it would take him a little bit in the game to get going, but he had a 50-yard touchdown drive in the first quarter. I mean, he rolled out to the right, threw a pass over TJ Watt, 18-yard gain. I was pretty impressed from the get-go with him, and I was thinking it might take him a few games to kind of get into stride. So it was nice to see him and Stefanski kind of get in on the same page about, mixing up calls and throwing in some deep passes and some run plays for him as well.
Yeah, excellent job that way. He didn't get a ton of help from the running game either, like Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, both in like the 30 yards rushing. So not a lot there. But most importantly, came through in the clutch, got that game-winning field goal, and we'll see if the a new offensive play caller, the quarterback coach Mike Sullivan, is going to call offensive plays. We'll see if that gives them a spark. But the Browns, they get their third straight win. They get to 7-3, and they're just a half a game behind the Ravens for first place. So, do you think the Browns can keep it up without Deshaun Watson and actually make the playoffs? They look like they can right now, but lots of football still left to be played.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where the, phrase defenses win championships is going to be tested for sure because their defense is great and it's been great all season. I mean, they held the Steelers to 10 points, but that offense needs to at least be able to put up some points. So I'll be intrigued to see how the rookie develops over the rest of the season.
Yeah, and credit to the Browns for being like going out there and trying to fix things. Like Deshaun Watson goes down, you got Dorian Thompson Robinson, you got PJ Walker, and on top of that, they go and they sign Joe Flacco, the longtime veteran, former Super Bowl MVP, and they're taking all the necessary precautions, right? Wouldn't a Joe Flacco signing with the Jets make a ton of sense if you look at their situation? But the Browns are active and go and take care of business that way when they don't even necessarily need it. And the Jets, meanwhile, can't figure anything out at the quarterback spot. So credit to the Browns there.
Yeah, I love a team that sees issues and addresses them and kind of lines up that next man up, because when your starting quarterback goes down and your backup goes in, like what happens if he goes down? Like you have to line
Yeah.
somebody else up. Otherwise, you're going to be having running backs or punters coming in at quarterback if something goes wrong in the next game. So good for them for being proactive in that situation.
Yeah, I'm gonna be rooting for this Browns team with all the adversity, losing Deshaun Watson, losing Nick Chubb, both for the season, and such an elite defense. They're fun to watch and fun to root for. So we'll be keeping a close eye on the Browns going forward. How about my Bears finding a way to blow it against the Lions? 2 weeks in a row now, the Lions have not played their best football, yet still found a way to come out with the win.
Yeah, I thought this game was going to be interesting. I mean, Justin Fields is back, made his return from his injury. He was great offensively. I mean, he finished the game with 169 passing yards, 104 rushing yards. He looked fully back. But I mean, the Bears should have won this game. There's no reason they should have lost. I mean, historically, no team since 1932 has had a +3 turnover margin and over 40 minutes of possession and lost the game. Teams were 48-0 coming into this game, and
Yeah.
somehow the Bears found a way to lose it. And I mean, it was really tough to watch, because if I was on that Bears team, like you did almost everything right, especially the defense. I mean, they were snagging turnovers. It was great, but man, that really sucks for the Bears.
Well, leave it to the Bears to, this Bears team especially and this regime to find ways to lose games. And, I don't think the defense played all that well. I think Goff was throwing it right to him. Like, I think that Goff played one of the worst games he's ever played, and or this season at least. And there was another play where Goff hit Jalen Johnson in the hands, and if he catches it, it's a pick six. And
Yeah.
instead, Jalen Johnson drops it, and then they score a touchdown on the next play. So a 14-point swing potentially right there on that play. Um, and when the Lions were in desperation mode, down 12, the Bears defense was non-existent. They threw on them and moved the ball down the field with ease. And then the Bears got the ball back, and they had just drove down the field and gotten a field goal and took like 6 minutes off the clock. And if they could have done anything close to that again, it would have made it a lot more difficult for the Lions to come back. And Getsy calls 2 runs up the middle and then a deep shot, a low percentage deep ball. And Tyler Scott slowed down a little bit on the route, but just a low percentage throw, used up 15 seconds and gave the ball right back to the Lions offense. That's a recipe for disaster right there.
Yeah, I was not sure why they were throwing it deep. Like in that situation, you just need that, like, just chip away at the clock, chip away at some yards, 4 yards
Yeah.
here, 5 yards here, little shovel passes, little runs. I mean, we've been harping on this all season. There's something to be said for a team that wants to win and coaching that just bites them in the ass every week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Bears are among the worst coach teams in the league. Like Eberflus, that's his defense, and it's one of the worst defenses in football. He has yet to win a division game yet. He's 0-9 in the NFC North since taking over, 6-22 overall. And Luke Getsy looks in over his head as well. It's just Justin Fields and DJ Moore are the two bright spots. Outside of them two, it's hard to really see anything positive. Maybe the tackle we drafted, but outside of that, there's not a lot there.
Yeah, it's one of those years that we're like, yeah, it's a rebuild year, but it's really tough to watch your team in those years. But on the opposite side of the ball, I mean, the Lions, Aiden Hutchinson, he
Mm-hmm.
was stunning to watch in this game. I mean, I love to see Michigan Wolverines showing up and pulling games off for their team, but he had a perfect game.
Yeah, he killed it. He's a monster, and you know, tough to block consistently. Darnell Wright, our high draft pick tackle, he's the one who got beat on that play,
Hmm.
for that fumble safety that ended the game. But for the Lions, they improved to 8-2. It's a great record, the best record they've had since like the '60s, I believe. They're finding ways to win games that they don't play their best, so they got to be optimistic and happy. But that's Jared Goff playing like that is where I see the Lions tripping up at some point, right? Like Goff to me is the weak spot on the entire roster. Credit to David Montgomery. It's fitting the Bears lose on a David Montgomery rushing touchdown. We let him go to the Lions. We didn't see the value in keeping him, and he comes back to bite us in the ass. But um, what do you think about that with Jared Goff? Do you think he can consistently continue to play at a high level, or will he have games like this? And if you play like that in the playoffs, you're going to lose.
Yeah, I think their schedule down the stretch isn't that challenging. I mean, they play Green Bay on Thanksgiving, which should be an obvious win for them. And then they play the Saints, the Bears, the Broncos, who should be a challenging matchup, and the Vikings twice and the Cowboys. So I can see, two, three losses there. But I mean, still, they're gonna most likely make it to the postseason, especially if they can knock off the Vikings in, one or two of those games. So it's one of those situations where, yeah, I think they're headed to the postseason, but I don't think they're going to make it past their first game in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree completely. Like their last four games, like you mentioned, Denver at Minnesota, at Dallas versus Minnesota. We talk about playing your best at the right time. I think that they're going to be really playing getting tested before the playoffs and might have a couple losses and might trip up going into the playoffs, and that's not a good recipe.
Yeah, if they can win 3 out of 4 of those matchups, then I'll start believing in them in the postseason.
Yeah, and if they win one out of four, then
The
we'll start
question
worrying
mark.
about them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think we're pretty worried about them in the postseason anyway because it's Detroit. But yeah, I mean, they do have some bright spots. What I was saying about Hutchinson, he is the first player in NFL history to have 15 sacks and 4 interceptions through his first 2 seasons. And then, I
yeah,
mean, on the other side of the ball, Jahmyr Gibbs recorded his 4th consecutive game with a rushing touchdown, his fifth rushing touchdown of the season. He just joined Kevin Jones, and Barry Sanders is the only Lions rookies to have 1 or more touchdowns in 4 consecutive games in franchise history. So, I mean, they definitely have some very bright spots in their team, and if they can continue to, kind of stay in sync, but they gotta fix that turnover issue.
yeah. I think they should be looking to draft a franchise quarterback, and it's going to be tough when you're winning football games to get a high pick quarterback. But at some point, they're going to have to upgrade from Jared Goff, and so it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that. They could have drafted, Justin Fields in the past, so we'll see what they do at quarterback. Um, for the Bears, I mean, fire Eber. Why didn't we fire Eberflus after this game? There's no reason to keep Matt Eberflus. He sucks. Fire him and Getsy either before the season ends or absolutely once the season's over. And try to go get Jim Harbaugh. And if you get the number one overall pick, go get Marvin Harrison Jr. and put him opposite DJ Moore. Now you've got a legit two weapons on the outside that can hurt anybody, right?
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating as a Bears fan to watch all these other coaches get fired and OCs get fired for, having a couple shitty games when they've been doing this for a while, just as
Yeah.
shitty and still have their jobs.
It makes you think that they don't care, right? They're just making money and they don't care that they get embarrassed on a weekly basis. And that's the frustrating part about being a Bears fan. And how can you be a fan of any franchise forever and be loyal to a franchise when constantly it looks like they don't care, right?
Yeah.
So now let's talk about your Packers who finally get a big win and score over 20 points and throw for 300 pass yards. Actually showed up against the LA Chargers.
So I picked the Chargers in this one, partially because you picked the Packers, and partially because the Packers love to lose. I predicted a goal line interception by Jordan Love. He obviously came through, but I was kind of actively rooting for the Chargers at one point because the Packers season is shot. At this point, like I just want a better draft pick. Like I don't, it's fine. We have 3 wins going into this game, like whatever. But I mean, I'm glad you were right. So it was yeah. And what was my favorite part of this game? We got our first Lambeau Leap of the season by a Packers player. Jaden Reed got, I mean, he was getting touches in every way. He had a great game. I mean, 32-yard end run around, like he was beautiful. 46-yard receptions. I mean, he had a great game. So I'm glad he got his first Lambeau Leap there. But I'm glad you were right about this one.
Yeah, I mean, this was also, if you remember, a spite pick because of the Chargers dropping the ball against Detroit. I was like, screw the Chargers. Plus, I don't think Green Bay's as bad as they've played recently. I think they're capable of being in games. They've been in all these games. They just haven't been able to finish. And the Chargers defense is so bad. And that leads me to the point that I keep making for 3 years now. How do you have a defense with Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., and it's so bad? At some point, when are the Chargers going to wake up and say, maybe Brandon Staley isn't the guy, right?
Yeah, it's crazy to see so much individual talent, but such a lack of cohesive team production.
Mm-hmm. Jordan Love first 300-yard pass game of his career and came through in the clutch. You have to be excited and optimistic about that.
Yeah, it was nice to see. I mean, it's the first 300 plus yard passing game since Aaron Rodgers in 2021. So it's been over 2 years. So
Wow.
it was really nice to have a glimmer of hope there. And we had the second longest active streak of 27 games without 300 passing yards. So it was nice to see that broken.
Yeah, this was actually a really good game. I mean, for us two picking against each other here, if Quentin Johnson, the rookie receiver, makes that catch, the Chargers are in field goal range to tie the game late. But he drops it, a huge drop, and that's pretty much the game. Nail biter really down to the end.
Yeah, what sucks about this game is, yeah, we pulled off a win, but it was a pretty big cost. I mean, leaving this game, our rookie tight end, Lucas Musgraves, has a lacerated kidney, no timeline for his return. He's been in the hospital. Aaron Jones has a sprained MCL, so he's out. I mean, it's all of our key offensive players in this game, both the running backs who played besides AJ Dillon are going to be out coming into Thanksgiving. So, I mean, great game, but a lot of injuries coming out of this one.
Yeah, and that's what sucks about the NFL is all the injuries that can happen at any time. Um, your rookies are playing well. Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, doing well. Also, any concern about your kicking game with Anders Carlson misses a field goal and an extra point in this game? Are you still confident in him going forward?
Who said I was confident in him? Hold up. I miss Mason Crosby. Let the record show no one ever said we were confident in Anders Carlson. Both of the Carlson brothers like to miss kicks. It's
Yeah,
cute
that's
that they're
true.
both kickers in the NFL, but like, can y'all be a bit more accurate, please, for your teams?
The Chargers continue to charger. The Packers get a big win. How about Raiders Dolphins?
So this one, I mean, we both kind of predicted this one. I think it was a situation where one of the teams looks better on paper than they actually are. I
Yeah.
mean, I know the Raiders were 500 going into this, and you mocked me for repeating something I saw on the internet about how the Raiders are a quote unquote contender. I mean, yeah, it was a closer game than it looks, I think. And the Dolphins had a lot of miscues. There were a lot of mistakes. Miami turned the ball over 3 times. There was a fumble. interception from Tua, missed field goal. I mean, the first 3 quarters, it looked like Miami wanted to lose this one. But I mean, they got lucky with Tyreek Hill. He is, the best player on the field yet again. So he pulled this one off, I think.
This is part of the reason I can't go all in on Mike McDaniel and Tua and the Dolphins. Like they don't I have no confidence in this team. Like this is a game they easily could have lost against a rookie quarterback and a Raiders team that's not that good. Um, it's a game they're supposed to win and a game that a lot of people, Dolphins fans, people that have Tyreek Hill in fantasy or Tua in fantasy and believe he's a MVP candidate would say, "Hey, Dolphins, go throw up 40 plus on them and blow them out," right? And they just don't. And they get sloppy and they turn the ball over. And this is why I don't trust the Dolphins, especially as it gets into December and January. And they just choke games away. Remember the Dolphins Packers game last year, a big game the Dolphins needed, and Tua threw what, 3 or 4 interceptions in that game?
Yeah, I think it was 3.
Yeah, or 2 in a row in the clutch,
Yeah,
And
it was bad.
yeah, so the Raiders kept this game close. They had 2 drives to potentially tie it, both ending in interceptions. Jalen Ramsey with the game-winning interception, he had 2 on the day. But I just can't trust this Dolphins team. They're going to win the games that they're supposed to, but can they win the big prove-it games? And they have yet to prove it to us at any point.
Yeah, I think Jalen Ramsey was having his fun with Davante Adams. I mean, I'm sure Adams was pissed after this game. He's held to 1 catch for 4 yards on 4 targets.
Damn.
Yeah, he ran 20 routes and Jalen held him to 1 catch. I had to check a couple times to see if he was still on the field.
That's
So,
when
I
they were
mean,
matched up on each other.
yeah, Jalen Ramsey
Yeah.
had a game, man.
Yeah. Because Devontae did pretty well when he wasn't covered by Jalen Ramsey, but yeah, Ramsey shut him down, and then got the 2 interceptions as well. Dolphins, they look like they're pretty comfortably in first place in the AFC East. You're a Bills supporter. That's your AFC team. Do you think the Bills can they get a big bounce back win? Do you think they can come up and threaten the Dolphins for that division still, or do you think it's Miami's to lose?
I think if the Bills play like they do in their good games, they're a very up and down team. But on the
Yeah.
games that they're clicking, I think they could easily take over the division.
Hmm.
You're never quite sure which Bills team you're going to get week to week.
Yeah, and kind of similarly with the Dolphins too.
Yeah,
So
where this week, I mean, you played against a rookie quarterback. Where is the team that dropped 70 on Denver? Like
yeah,
what happened? They don't have any major injuries that would have changed their roster that much.
the Dolphins are a great September, October team. I just don't know about November and December and especially January. So they got to prove it to us, and we'll be keeping a close eye on them the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, another matchup that we, had very strong feelings about, we thought we were super sure about, 2-8 Giants at the 4-6 Commanders. I mean, we both picked this one wrong. How did you feel about this game? The Giants came in and won it 31-19.
I don't think anyone could have predicted Tommy DeVito is going to go in there and actually play pretty well. Throw for 3 touchdowns and no turnovers, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
was surprised. We've been talking shit about him for a few weeks now, but he had a game.
yeah, it's like he's finally getting a little bit of confidence and a great game to do it. But if you're a Commanders fan, this is just completely unacceptable, right? I mean, you can excuse like struggling on defense or on offense. I mean, against a pretty good Giants pass rush, with Kayvon Thibodeau and those guys, but to allow Tommy DeVito to torch your defense like that, it's a really bad look. A Giants offense that's done nothing all season long, even with Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. So a really inexcusable loss for the Commanders in a game they needed to win. They're on the fringe of being a playoff contender, and this loss drops them to 4-7 and pretty much seals the deal. And then on top of it, the showers don't work post game. It's a shit show over there in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine being a Commanders player? Like your defense forced 6 turnovers against them. So like the Giants kick their butts and then they just want to like take a hot shower in silence and mull over the loss and no, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, it
I'd be like,
sucked.
trade me now. Like to, lose that game and then you can't even shower afterwards. I'd be like, this is the NFL and you
Yeah.
guys don't have showers. Like that would
It
be
would be so
sometimes,
triggering. Like if I'm already pissed off about something and then like
yeah.
that extra minor little bit of inconvenience, like it's like being like hangry and then like stubbing your toe. Like, nah, I'm over this shit. I'm fucking done. Yeah.
You see like Stephon Diggs and these guys saying trade me like after one bad game. This is a game where I would totally understand if someone was like trade me, get me out of here.
I'm out, please, for the love of God. Yeah.
But all that being said, they're 4-7, and Sam Howell is still leading the NFL in passing yards. Does that stat really mean anything to you when you're on a bad team?
I mean, passing yards and interceptions. So I feel
Yeah.
like that just shows us that they don't have a running game and he just fucking yeets the ball whenever he can. He just chucks it. Sometimes people catch it, sometimes, the other team catches it. I don't think it says anything. Like if he was, running for some of the yards or like he was, performing, but leading in both just means he always throws the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't I don't think it's a really impressive personal stat when you look at both sides of that.
Yeah, I agree. You got to give some credit to Eric Bieniemy, but yeah, it's not leading to wins really. So not a very good team over there in Washington, and this loss pretty much seals their fate this year. Let's talk Cowboys Panthers.
I mean, coming into this week, we said, what is there to say about this game? The Cowboys are gonna whoop on the Panthers. I mean, there's a reason the Panthers have one win, and I mean, we nailed that. Cowboys took care of business. The Panthers tried to hang around in the first half, make it a one possession game late in the third quarter, but I mean, Dallas had an answer for everything Carolina did. 75-yard touchdown drive, finished the game off with 9 points off Panthers turnovers. I mean, it looked like it was going to be scrappy in the first half. The Cowboys had a hard time finishing a few drives. Carolina had one long touchdown drive that took 9 minutes off the clock. But after that, I mean, Dallas kind of remembered who they were and showed up and pulled the win off.
Yeah, it's like Carolina tried to fight hard and make it a game, but at the end of the day, the Cowboys are the much more talented team, and ultimately the talent, overcame what Carolina was trying to do. Shout out to Duron Bland with his fourth pick six of the season, tied for the most in a season all time.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
thought when they lost Trayvon Diggs to that ACL in week 3, it was going to be a major hit to one of the
Yeah,
Bears defenses. Not so much. I mean, Duron Bland has really showed up. I mean, fifth round rookie from last year, he has been amazing so far for them.
yeah, and just think about how good that secondary is going to be next year when they get Diggs back. So, but yeah, Bland is balling out. Um, Frank Reich loses once again as offensive play caller. At some point, like Panther fans I know are pissed off that Monday they didn't see Frank Reich was fired. And
Mhm.
it's similar to the Bears. Like, what are you waiting for? This guy's clearly not it. Get him the hell out of here, right? And
Yeah, I mean, the
some,
Panthers were a mess. They had what, 9 penalties, 80 yards? Oh, 8 penalties for 90 yards. Sorry, I got those numbers switched. Like two unnecessary
yeah,
roughness penalties after stops on third and long. Like you're just giving away first downs at that point.
yeah. I mean, what you expect of a bad coach team, undisciplined, hurt, self inflicted mistakes, all kinds of shit like that.
Yeah, so I mean, as we predicted, nothing surprising in that game, not much to say. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it was what we thought it was going to be.
So I was happy to see the Jags bounce back in a big way against the Titans. I expected them to after getting embarrassed by the 49ers, and they did. They showed up. They jumped out to a 27-0 lead. I think it was more of a blowout than the score even indicates at 34-14. Trevor Lawrence, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, two with his arm, two with his legs. Good game from Calvin Ridley. And the Titans just look outmatched. The Titans look like it's going to be a long rest of the season. And trying to get them, develop Will Levis in the meantime. And Mike Vrabel almost looks like he's checked out. Like he might be completely fine with leaving after this season. How do you see that going? Good bounce back for the Jags though.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see Trevor Lawrence come back and have such a good game. Some of those touchdown passes, especially the two to Calvin Ridley, were beautiful, super accurate throws. But I mean, on the Titans, I mean, when Derrick Henry gets held to 38 yards on 10 carries,
Yeah.
it's just tough to still be like mentally into that game. Like I would look checked out in that game too if I was associated with the Titans.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people in Tennessee are ready to leave. I think Vrabel's ready to leave. I think Derrick Henry's ready to leave. I think DeAndre Hopkins is realizing now, why did I come here, right? So, Jeffrey Simmons is probably wanting to leave. Although they did throw Jeffrey Simmons a touchdown pass, his first career touchdown catch. How about that for the
Yeah.
defensive tackle?
I think that was designed because he's been a little unhappy. So I feel like that was a
Yeah,
very coordinated effort to shut him up and, kind of placate him. But it's gotta suck for the Titans because, the Jags were blown out last week. San Francisco completely demolished them. So they're like, all right, well, the division's kind of close. We won. If we can take down the Jags next week, maybe we can kind of scooch in and try to weasel our way into first. But after this week, I think they've come back down to earth and had to face reality because this was not a good game for them.
Yeah, and I just want to call out the people that I saw last week saying that Trevor Lawrence isn't that great and they don't consider him elite after that 49er game. People are fans and the media and everybody is so overreactionary in this sport. And we talk about it all the time how it's a week to week league and how a team looks one week, they can look the complete opposite the next. And anyone with eyes should be able to look at Trevor Lawrence with his arm strength, his athletic ability, his decision making, and say, he's got elite written all over him. Like, what are these people watching?
Yeah, I think he's great. I think they just, have off games, which is fine. Everyone does. That's
Yeah,
that's why we, if a team gets their butts kicked in week one, I tend not to count that loss because, everybody gets some time to kind of get out of sync and have an off day. So yeah, I
yeah,
don't think I don't think you can count one bad loss against the kid.
exactly. And just, nice to actually prove it and have a great game. In a game that you should win, go out there and take care of business and win it easily. Um, how about this matchup though? We talked about how fun it was going to be to watch Kyler Murray against C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, I'm glad we both picked the Texans in this one, but it was a fun, scrappy game. A lot of back and forth. I think it was really fun. I mean, Devin Singletary had a big day for that Houston offense. He carried the ball 22 times for 112 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he had a great day. CJ Stroud, as usual, playing really well. Will Anderson Jr., great pass rushing game here. But I think it was interesting. We got to see a more mortal side of CJ Stroud. I mean, he's been on a hot streak. People are talking about him constantly, but he made a couple of big mistakes in this game. 3 interceptions. One really wasn't a bad play, but there was a there was a couple pretty big mistakes by him in this game. So I think he might have exposed some things about himself that other teams might try to take advantage of moving forward.
Yeah, he needs to remember, and I think that happens. Like maybe those were like heat check throws, right? Like he had been so confident, and you see it with his throws how confident he is. Like he just gets back there and flicks his wrist and drops a dime in the bucket for a touchdown, right? So you see it in basketball sometimes when you've made like 4 or 5 threes in a row, you come down and shoot it from like the logo. And I feel like maybe CJ Stroud was doing a little bit of that, like feeling himself so much that he's like, well, I'm going to try to force this in here and got caught up a couple times and against a bad Cardinals team too, right? So maybe, I don't know, a little bit of cockiness and hopefully he learned his lesson from this game. It's okay as long as you overcome that with a win. And so, win-win and move on and try not to make those same mistakes next week against the Jags because if you throw 3 picks against the Jags, they're gonna blow you out, and there goes your chance to win the division, right?
Yeah, I think they left a lot of points on the board in this game. I mean,
Yeah.
5 first half drives, they scored on 3 of those, but turnover, downs, interception. I mean, it was not how they wanted to start the game. Luckily, they pulled off the win, and they're lucky to have rookie Tank Dell on the other side of CJ Stroud because that boy
Yeah.
can catch. I mean, he had a great day, 8 passes for 149 yards. So I think they've got some great players on offense. They just need to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, I loved him coming out of the draft out of Houston, and he reminds me, him and Zay Flowers are similar in the fact that
Mhm.
they're so fast and such good footwork. I don't know how you defend them, right? Like they're gonna find a way to get open. They got a little bit of that Tyreek Hill where it's just like they're they're just it's hard to stick with them.
Yeah, and as soon as they peel off of you, they're gone. I
Yeah.
remember during our draft episode, I was on about Zay Flowers, and you're like, "No, Tank Dell, they're the same person." It's like, yeah, I mean, they have such a similar way of playing. They're so similar.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll do our victory laps on those drafts. That was a great draft episode we did. We'll have to do that
Oh,
again.
I love seeing our draft picks playing so well. I mean, we've got Walker, we've got Gibbs, like our receivers
Yeah.
are doing well. I mean, Jaden Reed was your boy, and I had my doubts, but I mean, we've been doing really well with our draft predictions, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's fun to see. Dontavian Wicks too.
Mhm.
Both those rookies. Your rookie tight end. You get Green Bay has a good rookie draft class. It's just, uh,
Injuries. It is
yeah,
injuries. So
yeah,
I didn't touch on this because we're not doing our predictions in this episode, but if you look at the Packers injury report each week, like this week in particular, the Lions have 4 players total on the injury report. The Packers have 21. Like
Jesus.
there is talent on the team. Is the talent all on the field at the same time? No. So it's one of those things, but it's great to see a lot of these rookies playing really well. And then I mean, I think we need to give Kyler Murray a shout out. Second game back, they did come up short, but I mean, they I saw someone say they might be the most competitive 2-9 NFL team.
Yeah,
I mean,
honestly.
because looking at their record coming into this game, you're like, oh, they're garbage. But I mean, Kyler Murray is back, and he's still kind of working out the kinks a little bit. But they had a shot to come back. They had 3 late fourth down fails that I mean, if they had converted any of those, this game would have been a nail biter at the end.
Yeah, and a couple field goals might have done the trick too. So shout out Jonathan Gannon for believing in analytics when everyone with a pair of eyeballs knows better.
Yeah, I hate when they leave points on the board, man.
Yeah, but such is the league these days. Um, let's go Bucks 49ers. Baker Mayfield, a tough matchup for him, right? Going up against such a dominant defense in San Francisco and a red hot 49ers team.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy was perfect in this game, quite literally perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
158.3.
158.3. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't do any better than that. He completed all but 4 of his 25 pass attempts. He was efficient. George Kittle was catching everything. He was completely open the entire game. I don't know what happened, but nobody was on George Kittle ever. Every time I looked at him, he was wide open. I mean, Ayuk got a beautiful 76-yard reception. McCaffrey was in the game. I mean, it was a perfect game for Purdy. It looked great. I don't even know what else to say about this game. And as much as I want to root for Baker Mayfield, they were severely outmatched in this game, and they just failed to capitalize on a lot of opportunities. They had the ball inside the 15-yard line twice in the fourth quarter and didn't score either time.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Bucks offense has a lot of holes, and I think it's a bit undercoached right now. Um, and I mean, the Niners are one of the hottest teams in the NFL, so we were right about this pick, and for all the reasons that we saw in this game.
Well, it's a little bit disheartening too if you're a Bucks fan to go from remember when CJ Stroud was threw all over them and then was clutch and we talked about how the Bucks defense is better than that, right? And then they bounce back against the Titans and I congratulate them and say, "See, that's how you need to play." And then they go against the Niners and they allow a perfect passer rating and don't defend anybody. and it's very frustrating. There's talent all over that Bucks defense, and they're just not playing like it consistently. I think maybe it's scheme, maybe it's coaching because nobody's being covered, and you know, and Baker, I don't know. I think mostly it's defense,
Hmm.
um, and we'll see though. I mean, the Bucks fall to 4-6, and they're only a game out of first place in the NFC South. So as bad as it's looked at times, the Bucks could still win the division and go to the playoffs.
Yeah, it was one of those games, and we talked about this early on about how some of these great young quarterbacks don't have the weapons they need, so they try to do everything on their own. It
Yeah,
really looked like Baker Mayfield was trying to play all the positions on offense in this game. So I don't think this one's on him. But I mean, he was scrappy, he was in it, he was emotional, he was trying to get stuff going, he was, you know, getting the ball out, but there's only so much you can do.
yeah, absolutely. And when your defense, leaves Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle wide ass open, Baker can't play defense too.
Yeah, I bet he would try though if they let him. Man, that kid, a lot of heart on that one.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a lot of heart, how about your Jets?
I mean, first of all, I picked the Bills here. Those are your Jets in this game.
Yeah, but we don't need to talk about that.
Well, I mean, so you won 3 games of our 5 picks, which, hurts a little bit, but you lost this one by 26. That I mean,
Well, I'm still trying to believe in the Jets, but now apparently, it's very apparent now that don't believe in the Jets anymore. I mean, Zach Wilson got benched and might be benched forever. Like the Jets certainly made a statement with that one.
hey, you just cut out. Say that again. Start at the Zach Wilson got
Zach,
benched.
Zach Wilson got benched and it might be forever. Like they made a statement with that one. Like they not only benched him but made him third string.
Well, it's funny to me that Tim Boyle has just been following along, just wandering behind Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, Aaron's got some pull with that team if Tim Boyle's now the starting quarterback. That's insane to me. He's not good. He was a third string in Green Bay for a while, then a second string, then a third string. Like I I mean, they have a great relationship. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but they've got some deal worked out with the devil to keep that man in a jersey.
I mean, he's not good, but do you think that I think there's a chance that he is more effective in that offense than Zach Wilson has been?
I mean, anyone would be more effective at this point. Like, what did Pat McAfee tweet during the game?
Oh, have the punter play quarterback.
Yeah, because he had a fake punt during the game, right?
Yeah, fake punt
Yeah.
pass that went for like 30 yards.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, just have the boy play. I think that's the second time this year they've done that successfully.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah.
mean, they've got their third string. Is he their second string now? Is that why Zach Wilson's the third string?
No,
That
Trevor
was
Simeon.
that,
Trevor
that was a joke.
Simeon is elevated from the practice squad, the second string. I
Yeah,
think
well,
Zach Wilson has played his last down as a Jets quarterback,
mhm.
and it's going to be a long road for him to get an opportunity to start again in this league.
I would just like to say I never thought he was good enough to be a starting quarterback, and I could not figure out the hype around him. Like I just
Yeah,
didn't see it.
well, and
And I've
it
been
was
proven right.
it was tough too, going from BYU to the Big Apple and New York City, and they drafted him, and on the back page of the paper it said Broadway Zach. Like, talk about pressure, you know?
Yeah, I think that's too much to put on a young kid. And he just I don't know, it's been a lot of pressure his whole career. And then bringing in Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't supposed to start. He was supposed to learn from the best, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's been a tough season for him, kind of losing his mentor and then now being benched, but maybe he'll
And,
play better somewhere else in the future.
and it'll be interesting to see how Boyle looks because I don't think it's all Zach either. The offensive line hasn't been great. Alan Lazard has had drops. Dalvin Cook hasn't been as nearly as productive as they hoped. So there's issues outside of the quarterback position as well. So hopefully they look better with Tim Boyle, but no promises either, you know?
Yeah, and we have to talk about the other side of the game as well. I mean,
Yeah.
the Bills in this game, Rasul Douglas was such a great midseason pickup for them from the Packers. He has been insanely good on this team. And
Yeah.
I am so frustrated that the Packers let him go. I mean, no catches on 4 targets in his coverage. He got 2 interceptions in this game, added a fumble recovery. Like, I am so ticked off at Green Bay for letting him go. But that at least it's nice to see a player that your team let go like performing well. It's kind of depressing yet validating to see people like Marquez Valdes-Scantling who go to a new team and then do the same shit but still have a starting job. So,
Yeah.
I'm happy for him. And Josh Allen had a great day. I think that switch to Joe Brady as their OC has been a great success. I mean, the first half of the game they were kind of preheating the oven a little bit. They kind of had a slow start, but I mean, they showed up in the second half and they were, I mean, all over the field. It was beautiful. Josh Allen had um that 81-yard strike to Khalil Shakir. It was stunning. Like you and I were messaging
Mhm.
about that one during the game. It was beautiful. And then Allen, I mean, completions underneath, avoiding turnovers. I mean, he knew when to run. He avoided tackles. I mean, it was a great game for that Bills offense for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, a big get right win that they desperately needed. They had lost 3 of 4, and they if they lost this game, they were going to be swept by the Jets. So that was also in their mind. They would have fallen to third place in the division, that as well. So they had all the motivation in the world to go in there and win that game and dominate that game. And so glad to see them do it. Now, going forward, I'm not gonna say. I mean, Joe Brady definitely provided a spark in this game, but you're gonna see the true test is coming up here for the Bills at the Eagles, at the Chiefs, and versus the Cowboys in their next 3 games. That'll tell us who this Bills team is because you go 1-2 even, and you're what 7-7 and on the outside looking in, you need to like does 9-8 get you to the playoffs? You need to go probably 10-7. So the pressure will be on then. So 3 tough games where the Bills need to show up. No more inconsistencies. Show up and win these 3 games in a row. We'll see if they can do it.
Yeah, I would love to see them run the table.
Yeah.
But we'll see realistically coming down the line how they look.
Yeah, absolutely. And some Aaron Rodgers news, he's planning to return to the Jets practice in 2 weeks, and he's already jogging on a treadmill. So the Jets fall to 4-6, and Aaron Rodgers is so close. So we'll see if Tim Boyle can do anything. One win might be enough, right? If Aaron Rodgers can come back and you're, you know, a game out of 500, you got a shot. But they desperately need. This is why I would have signed Joe Flacco, right? Maybe he could have done something. We'll see if Tim Boyle can do it or Trevor Simeon, but they need someone to give them a win.
Yeah,
Maybe it's the punter.
Tim Boyle is like the shadow of Aaron Rodgers, so maybe he can, maybe they've been together enough he can pull off some of that magic, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, sign Matt Flynn. What's he doing these days?
Win it to win it. Matt Flynn's my boy, dude. I would get a Jets jersey for Matt Flynn. I love that guy. We got to get him on the show, dude.
You just want a Jets jersey.
I have a Jets jersey. My father-in-law got me an Aaron Rodgers Jets jersey.
There you go.
No, no.
We both picked this one wrong. The Seahawks losing to the Rams, but I'm not gonna. The Rams aren't very good, and I'm gonna put most of this on not having Geno Smith for
Mhm.
half the game. Kenneth Walker going out in the first quarter with an injury,
Yeah.
and Jason Myers. What was that gust of wind? That field goal kick looked good, and all of a sudden a gust of wind came from God or something and blew that thing to the right.
I mean, wide right, 55-yarder. I think this is just an injury situation. I don't accredit this to Matt Stafford leading the Rams to a comeback win. I mean, he looked healthy, he looked fine. The Rams had a shitty start and then took advantage of some Seattle injuries.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's easy to beat a team who just lost their well, they have two star running backs, but their star running back, their quarterback. I mean, yeah. So I don't attest this so much to the Rams winning as Seattle just taking a couple really tough hits.
Yeah, and Drew Lock didn't look very good in spot and replacement, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Drew Lock has never looked good. So what else is new? I mean, interception on 3rd and long, set up the Rams go ahead field goal. Of course he did. Like, what else would Drew Lock do?
Yeah. So big win for the Rams. You know, get to 4-6, but third place in the division. The Seahawks fall to 6-4. You need to flush that one right away and get prepared for Thanksgiving night. 49ers at Seahawks. Seattle, who cares about this Rams loss? If you can bounce back and beat the Niners, then no one's going to talk about the Rams loss. But if you lose to the Niners, then that's back-to-back losses, and and the Niners are pulling away with the division.
Yeah, I think that game means a lot more than this Rams one did. So
Yeah.
who cares? No one's gonna remember it. If you can pull off a win against the Niners, whew, no one will
Yeah,
shut up about that game. Nothing that happened before that point in the season is gonna matter.
absolutely. Let's go Sunday night football. This is where it gets good. Sunday night football. I picked the Broncos. You picked the Vikings. Both teams coming in on multiple game winning streaks. The Vikings 5 straight wins. The Broncos 3 straight wins. And the Vikings really outplayed the Broncos for most of the game. But man, I tell you what, that Denver defense is playing a lot better.
Yeah, they have really stepped it up the past 4 weeks. I mean, the Vikings lost this one by 1 point, and it was
Mm-hmm.
a close, scrappy game the whole time. This was one of the best Sunday night footballs of the season. It was
Agreed.
a great game. I mean, Cortland Sutton, offensive player of the game for sure. He had amazing catches throughout the game, got that game winner, got 4 of his 5 targets. Russell Wilson looks good. And you said let
Yeah.
Russ cook. I kind of picked the Vikings just because you came into this one so hot on Russ's, bandwagon, which is fine. I mean, my husband was getting real pissed off when I was rooting for the Vikings in this one, but I mean, I'm happy for the Broncos. They had a real rough year last year and the beginning of this year, so I'm glad they've been able to put something together. Um, but I was kind of sad for Dobbs. I mean, I was enjoying their win streak. They had 3 quarterbacks throughout their 5 wins. We got the Pasternaut in here. It's been an interesting ride for him. So I think the defense pulled this one off. The offenses were very equally matched, and we knew this was going to be a close game coming into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great game. It was physical. It was hard fought. Um, the Broncos were wearing those jerseys that was a little bit of a throwback. And when Cortland Sutton caught that game winner, I kept saying that's Brandon Marshall. That looked exactly like Brandon Marshall. Like change the 14 to a 15. That's who that was. Like it was beautiful. Russell is looking shades of Seattle Russ. Like
Mhm.
he's not doing too much. He's not trying to take the games over. He's just doing enough and he's being smart. He's making good decisions. He had that a 4th down on that final drive, 4th down conversion, little float pass to Cortland Sutton. That game winner, little floater, just throw it up, let Cortland make a play on it. And then if you remember, he had 4 check down passes, all to Samaje Perine on that final drive, each one of them picking up a 1st down. Those were vital, all 4 of those. And so just smart football from him.
Yeah, I think that team is clicking really well. And I mean, we've seen the amazing Russ and the comeback Russ when he was in a Seattle jersey. So
Yeah.
he seems to be back. But I mean, shout out to that defense. Kareem Jackson forcing a fumble, recovered by McMillian. I'm not sure how to say his name, whatever. But I mean, they had Dobbs' number in that game. That defense was all over him. But again, moving forward, the Broncos are losing Kareem Jackson again.
Yeah, and real quick, I think that's complete bullshit. Like you just said it, he forced that fumble. That was a great play. If they had thrown a flag at that time or ejected him from the game for that hit, I would have lost my shit. That's good football. We grew up, that's good football. You separate the ball from the quarterback, and they want to talk about protecting the quarterback. Josh Dobbs was a running back on that play. He was a runner. Once you're out of the pocket, once you're past the line of scrimmage, it should be all bets off. And he didn't hit him in the helmet. He didn't headshot him. He hit him in the chest. I see nothing wrong with that. I think that the NFL is picking on Kareem Jackson now. Has he made bad mistakes in the past? Yes. The hit against Green Bay, was that a little bit dirty? Yes. But this hit, nothing dirty about it. And we need guys like J.J. Watt and Tom Brady and former players in these rule committees that actually play the game. Richard Sherman, guys like that, and not these old white folks that have never played a down of NFL football in their life. Do you agree with me?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers both stated their opinion on this, saying that people aren't being taught to protect themselves when they have the ball. Defenders
Mm-hmm.
are expected not to hurt them, but no one is forcing their receivers and their running backs and their quarterbacks to protect themselves. I mean, you look back 10 years ago, we have more starting quarterback injuries this year than we've seen in many years, but yet the game is made to protect the offense and we're babying the quarterbacks. But
Yeah.
back in the day, these quarterbacks were taking these hits and staying in games and not, having these Achilles tears and these ACLs and broken collarbones and arms and etc. Like, so what's different between now and then? We're protecting the quarterbacks more. These good hard hits are being penalized. They're happening less, but the quarterbacks are getting injured more. So something is wrong there. And I completely agree with Tom Brady, which is rare. But he said that what's different is no offensive player is being expected to learn how to take care of themselves. They're
Yeah.
expecting the referees to do it for them and the
Yeah,
rules to do it for them.
and it's completely opposite, right? It's completely ass backwards. The defense is supposed to, if you are going to be dumb, if you're not going to slide and get your ass down or out of bounds, the defense is taught to hit you and hit you hard and go and separate the football. And that's exactly what Kareem Jackson did. And now he's getting suspended for it. It's fucked up, in my opinion. Like, it's not football. And um, I thought that was a great play in the game. That if he doesn't make that play, the Vikings add 7 to their score and the Vikings win. So you're asking defenders to take a loss and not make a game-winning play, or get fined and get suspended. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I worry about him because I think some of his plays would have been perfectly acceptable 5, 6, 7 years ago, but now they're
Yeah,
not. But I mean, he's been ejected from one game. He's been fined 4 separate times, and this will be his second 4-game suspension of the season. So I am
yeah.
concerned about his position moving forward because I think he's a great player. Is he a little rough sometimes? Sure. But
But
I
we used to love those guys.
Oh no, I still love
We
them, but I'm just worried about the current NFL and their acceptance of players like that. I mean, give
that
me Ray Lewis back any day. I
yeah.
miss that scrappy old school ground and pound. I mean, it was so much more fun to watch. Those hard hits. Like sometimes when I'm sad about current NFL, I'll just look up, NFL's hardest hits on YouTube. That's just
Yeah.
amazing to watch.
Yep.
But yeah, I worry about him being able to hold a job if they keep coming down on him this hard, because that is not a great record for this season. Like his resume for 2023 is awful.
Yeah, and on top of that, you said it in there. You worry about the current players being able to adapt. I also worry about the current league and where it's headed.
Agreed.
And it's somewhat, this is why I'm so adamant that we need former players in that league office that can talk some sense into these rule committee guys. And Aaron Rodgers was vouching for this one official, that they need to take some of these head officials that are in the broadcast booths and put them in the actual officiating room, like in the, with the actual refs, and teach them better and teach them differently and change the way the game is being officiated, because they're hurting the game, they're hurting the product. And and on top of that, they're talking about trying to eliminate the hip drop tackle that got Mark Andrews hurt. We talked about that last week. How are you supposed to tackle Derrick Henry or AJ Brown or DK Metcalf or Josh Allen in the open field with a head of steam if you're saying you can't hit them high and you can't hip drop tackle, stuff like that? Like, what are we doing here? And the game is going at 100 miles an hour. defenders don't exactly have an opportunity to stop the play and decide, okay, I need to hit him in this spot and I need to be soft with it and I can't land with body weight. All these stupid things that the NFL thinks that defenders are going to have time to think about.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of interesting things that have highlighted some of the issues with the NFL this season. And I'll mention one of them in a minute, but the Monday night game, Eagles at the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yep.
Looking at the league now, Jalen Hurts leads the league in rushing touchdowns since 2021. Not a running back. There's no McCaffrey, there's no Saquon. I mean, that stat in itself, I mean, Austin Eckler is second with 29. Jalen Hurts is 32. Derrick Henry is 27. Josh Jacobs 26. But that is not boding well for the running back conversation, because how are you going to convince people that running backs are an elite position and they need to be paid when the leading rusher is a quarterback? Because there are so many rules set out to protect quarterbacks on the run that aren't applicable to running backs. Because,
Yes.
I mean, quarterbacks can basically just run and give themselves up, and nobody can hit them because it's so hard to get a tackle on a quarterback without a penalty, which is why, I mean, Jalen Hurts is amazing. He's amazing on his legs. I'm not talking shit about him at all here, but there is no reason a quarterback should be leading the leagues in rushing touchdowns for over 2 years.
Well, it's funny. Think about this for a second. If a quarterback like Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes is running and slides to protect themselves, everyone says that's a smart play, right? And a defender comes in and hits them after they slide, flags go immediately, right? But if a running back is out in the open field and slides, the entire media and fans and everyone is going to call that running back soft.
Yeah.
And then if he slides and gets hit by a defender, do you think any flags are going to come out? Absolutely not. So they've taken the quarterback protection that is in the pocket and applied that now in the open field. And that's why Patrick Mahomes flops every time he's near a defender, even in the open field or along the sideline, because he's a superstar and he knows that he can get the flag more oftentimes than not. We saw it in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. We've seen it in big-time playoff games multiple times from Patrick Mahomes. These quarterbacks are getting ultimate protection because they're the multi $100 million players, and the league doesn't want to see them get hurt. And that is not applied to running backs. And that to me is a big time. Like, what are we doing here? Like, if a quarterback leaves the pocket, he should be considered a running back.
Oh, I
So
absolutely agree with you. I think these rule changes and these protections are not being applied properly in a way that actually cares about player protection. I think
yeah,
Tom Brady hit the nail on the head saying that players need to be taught, like they used to be, how to protect themselves and how to take a hit and how to keep themselves safe and, kind of tuck their arms in and take a hit, because they're completely changing the outcome of games and changing the watchability of a lot of these games.
yep, 100%. And I tweeted that a couple days ago too, that these rule changes, like you look at all the talk about the turfs, right? The turf versus grass, and the way they treat running backs, they don't want to pay running backs, and running backs take the most abuse, right?
Yeah.
The rule changes have never been about player safety. The rule changes, they sell it as player safety, but it's obviously about money.
Yeah, I mean, that's
And
why they want all these offensive shootout games and not
yeah,
defensive games,
that's
because
why
they
they're
penalize
punishing
defenses.
defenses. Yep,
Yep.
100%. So real
Right.
quick, let's talk about this game before we get out of here. Eagles Chiefs, a great game, and to me, this is almost like two different games. And tell me if you saw this too. In the first half, the Chiefs dominate the Eagles on both sides of the trenches. They run for 121 yards in the first half against the number one run D in football. And on the other side, they sack Jalen Hurts 5 times. So they dominate the first half and they're up 17-7. In the second half, they don't run the ball. They become pass happy in a rainstorm, and they don't get pressure on the Eagles, and they allow the Eagles to come back and win that game 21-17. what happened in those two halves? Did you see the same thing?
Yeah, that pissed me off. I mean, I picked the Chiefs in this game. You picked the Eagles. I thought it was gonna be a close game. I mean, my reasons for picking the Chiefs were they were 18-0 when they scored first for the past two seasons, so I thought they would come in hot at home. I mean, Chris Jones had Hurts's number in the first half of the game. I think the
Yeah.
AFC is way more competitive. I think the Eagles, have played three AFC teams. They beat the Pats in week one, which I don't really count. The Jets in week six, and they lost two by 6 points. And then, this game. So I thought the Chiefs would pull this one off, and had they continued to play like they did in the first half, they would have. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know if your running game is working and the field is wet. I don't know who in the Chiefs coaching or ownership or whatever had some pull with that. I have no idea what happened, but if you're running all over a team, you don't stop running in the second half. That
Take
was idiotic. I
take a
have no fucking idea.
take a quick guess. Who's the Chiefs' offensive play caller?
I mean, don't I suck at pulling up names out of nowhere like that.
You know that I hate this guy,
I know. I'm just so bad at names. Give me one
Matt
second.
Nagy.
Oh, Matt Nagy from Chicago. Yeah, duh.
Yes, the
Yeah.
guy who blew a 18-point playoff lead as the Chiefs' offensive play caller. The guy who did this all the time in Chicago with the Bears. Matt Nagy is trash. I've been saying it since 2019, and he's doing it again. The Chiefs, so the two games before the bye week, the Chiefs had scored 0 points in the second half. They
Mhm.
had the entire bye week to get that fixed. And what do they do on Monday night?
Get
Zero
shut out in the
points
second half.
in the second half.
Yeah, it pissed me off so much. Not only because I had this pick, but like it was it was such a good game for them moving into the half. Like,
Yeah,
why on earth would you stop? And I mean, the Eagles stepped it up a bit, but I don't think the Eagles played that differently than they did the first half.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
The
I mean,
Chiefs just,
L'Jarius Sneed had I he tried so hard to pull that game off. He was targeted 6 times in coverage. He allowed only 2 catches for 13 yards. Came away with an
yeah.
interception, 2 forced incompletions. Like, I have quietly liked him all season. It's hard to root for the Chiefs in my house, but he's a player I've really enjoyed watching. And it was insane that they just handed this game away.
Yeah, they've continually done that. Not for three games in a row. Real quick, can you guess how many points per game are the Chiefs averaging this season in the second half?
Uh, seven
Say
maybe?
5.3.
Shit, damn, that's bad.
That's so un-Chiefs like.
That's like
And
the Packers in the first half.
I think the Chiefs are flawed. I really do. Like now of all times, because especially the bye week is where you fix those issues. And to come out of the bye and do it again, that to me says there's a major issue here that they haven't fixed. And I am worried about this Chiefs team going forward a little bit. I don't think right now, how can you take the Chiefs and say they're going to go back to the Super Bowl?
I don't think they have the receivers to do that.
Yeah, the drops, right?
Oh my
And
God, the
everyone
drops.
and everyone's pointing to the drops and saying that's the reason why. But let me quickly point out that Mahomes threw a bad interception in the first half to Kevin Byard that took points off the board. That was in the end zone. And then he had a couple misses in the second half as well. But yes, the drops are a big thing as well. And then Travis Kelce, your most reliable target, with a big red zone fumble last night too.
Yeah. People have been saying that, when the camera's not on him because his girlfriend's not there, he underperforms. And I have argued with that because, but prior to this relationship, he was still a, top-notch player. But I
Hmm.
don't know. It was a little suspicious this week. Maybe he needs all that attention. Maybe he's enjoying the camera on him and his girl up in the stands every game. Because this was a very underperformance kind of week
It's
for
a,
him.
it's a sign, Kelce. You got to break that off. It's time to go single again.
Uh, he's more scrappy when he's single. But yeah, I mean, Justin Watson is a good receiver. Rashee Rice is good. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is garbage. He has always been garbage. There's one thing you can count on him to be, and it's inconsistent. I mean,
Yeah.
1 of 6 passes is a beautiful game-shattering catch. The other ones he's gonna miss or drop. He pissed me off week after week with Green Bay. he left, and he's doing the same thing there. I mean, that was a game-winning touchdown. He had both hands on it.
Yeah.
He should have caught that. The Chiefs should have won that.
I,
But
I was so glad he dropped it. I saw it going. I'm like, God damn it! Like, here we go. And
yeah,
he
I mean,
dropped
because you picked the Eagles, and we prefer the Eagles, but I thought the Chiefs would pull it off. If
it.
they had a
Yeah.
receiver who could catch, like if they had still had Tyreek Hill, they would have that game was over.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
If that was Hill, that's easy money.
yeah, but MVS is consistently inconsistent still yet again. I mean, that's the MVS special. This is what we called it in Green Bay, when he
Well,
would just drop a perfect pass to lose the game.
remember week 1 against Detroit, the opener, all those drops.
Oh God, please don't remind me. Yeah. Yeah.
So
But I mean, you see him slamming his helmet against the tunnel, the Chiefs sign on his way out, and the comments about that were hilarious. Like, oh, I'm surprised he held onto his helmet. Like, he is dog shit. I don't know. Like, he has amazing plays every now and then, and I just don't know how he still has a starting job.
yeah, consistency is so key, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you'd rather be like less talented and more consistent than wildly inconsistent. So it's
Yeah.
tough, and it's gonna. What can the Chiefs do? They can't really upgrade. They traded for McCole Hardman. What's he done since coming back?
I
Like,
forgot he was on the team, honestly.
yeah, they they don't really have a lot of options, so they're stuck with who they got. Eric Bieniemy's gone now. You replaced him with Matt Nagy, which is a big time downgrade. So I don't really know. The Chiefs' defense is the only thing that can keep them in it. And at the end of the day, Mahomes can't walk the ball down and hand it off to you. You have to catch the ball, and if they can't, or if they fumble after the catch, they're majorly flawed. And so we'll see if they can turn it around. But right now, I've got some major concerns about this Chiefs team.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But on the other side of the ball, shout out to Jalen Hurts. It was his 10th game with multiple rushing scores. He just tied Cam Newton for the most career games with 2 or more rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. So that's a great stat for him. He's a great player. It's fun to watch him. I was a little bitter that they pulled off this win, but that's just because I like to be right. That's all. But
I told you I'm on the comeback trail. I got you down to 3.
you said that a couple
Thanksgiving.
weeks ago when you were only down 2, and then it went to 4. So let's
Well, that was a fluke. That was a fluke, was what that was.
okay. Okay, we'll see how our Thanksgiving picks go on tomorrow night's episode.
Yeah, sounds good. I can't wait for that. Real quick, the Colts release linebacker Shaq Leonard. Are you surprised by that?
No, I think I mean, he has been kind of unhappy there for a while. There's been a lot of tension, kind of back and forth. I've seen articles at least once a month for the past couple months saying like he's not happy and his future is in question. So I'm not surprised. If a
Hmm.
player isn't enjoying being on your team and he's bringing up issues to the media, like let him go. Cut the loss. Like you don't need the negativity on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see. I've seen a bunch of contenders talking about trying to sign him. The Bills sounded like they were interested. The Eagles were interested. The Dolphins were interested. So we'll see who Shaq Leonard goes to.
God, I want him on the Bills. That would be a great fit.
Yeah. So, well, good shit as always. That was a fun episode. We'll do our Thanksgiving uh, uh, predictions tomorrow night, and have a great holiday.
Yeah, guys, keep an eye out for that episode tomorrow night while you're, getting that turkey out and in its brine. We're gonna pick Thanksgiving and Black Friday games, and we'll release that episode tomorrow night, so you guys have something to listen to as you're checking on that turkey.
Hell yeah. So appreciate everyone. Stay tuned for some more interviews coming on deck and weekly content. Great shit as always. Have a great week and peace.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Peace out.